Chapter 12 of Sketches. Hey, McKinnon. I stopped and spun around at the mention of my name. Ashley stopped and turned around too. We saw Brent jogging towards us, waving an arm in the air. We waved back. McKinnon! He yelled out again. McKinnon? Ashley asked. That's my last name, I explained. I didn't know that. I didn't think Brent knew it either. He slowed his pace down to a jog and then to a walk. He was carrying something in his hand. It looked like a bunch of papers. Not newspapers, though. Hello, Ashley. Hello, Dana McKinnon. Hello, Brent, whatever your last name is, I said. I don't even know your last name. Actually, neither do I, Ashley said. And I don't know yours, he said to Ashley. That's because I never told you, Ashley replied. And I never told you mine. He looked directly at me, and neither did Dana. He handed me a piece of paper and then handed another one to Ashley. I almost dropped it. I felt my legs get weak and my stomach did a flip. There on paper, in gigantic letters, was my name. Under that was my picture, and below that it said, "Help us find our daughter." I wasn't even 100% sure it was you at first, Brent said. Not until I yelled out your name and you turned around. It's me, I mumbled. I have to sit down, and I slumped on the curb. It looks sort of like you, but not really. When was this picture taken? He asked. Last fall. It's my school picture. I've changed a lot since then. Especially your hair, Brent said. Where did you get this? I asked, finally regaining my composure enough to think of a question. I got the first one from a streetlight. It was taped up. Another one was on the side of a newspaper box. And then there are all these, he said, holding up a stack of 10 or 15 more flyers. You pulled all those down? I asked. No, I got them from some lady, he explained. She said she was your mother. My mother? You were talking to my mother? I gasped. Yeah, about 30 minutes ago. I looked around, anxious, terrified that she was right there, that she'd seen me. I've got to get away. I can't let her find me. I jumped to my feet. It's okay, Brent said. He reached out and grabbed me by the shoulders. She isn't here. She was more uptown and headed away from here. Okay? I nodded my head dumbly, and he took his hands away. What did she want? What was she doing? Isn't it obvious? She wants to find you. She was putting up these notices so somebody knew where you were, they'd call her. I looked at the paper again. Down below all the big stuff there was a phone number. My home phone number, where people could call if they knew anything about where I was or how to find me. Anybody who saw these flyers, anybody who'd seen me on the street could just call, and my mother would know. And my stepfather would know. I have to get away from here, I said. Don't worry, she's headed in the other direction. But the flyers aren't. People will see them and call her and... People barely give these poster things a second look, Brent said. You did. It doesn't even look like you, Ashley said, pointing to the picture on the flyer. Brent recognized me. But I know you. Lots of people know me. At least know what I look like, and some of them know my first name. None of that matters if they don't see the flyers. But they will see the flyers. You said she was posting them all over the place. Well, no one's going to see these flyers, Brent said, holding up the sheaf in his hand. Why did she give you all of those? I told her I'd hand them out. You can't do that. Dana, relax, Brent told me. He's not going to turn you in, Ashley said, and when I calmed down for a second, I realized she was right. I just figure that if they were in my hands, they could go straight into the garbage can where nobody would see them. He stood up and walked a few feet to the large metal bin and deposited the flyers inside. Thank you so much. It's the least I could do. And we'll go back right now and take down all the ones she posted, Ashley said. That's right, Brent agreed. We're here to take care of each other, like family. Better than family, I said. Speaking of family, I have to say, your mother seemed really nice, Brent said. Lots of people can seem nice, but that doesn't mean anything, Ashley said. Right, Dana? I guess so. The funny thing was that my mother was nice. All my friends liked her, and she never had a bad word to say about anybody. Well, anybody except my father. She was the sort of person who brought home injured birds, lent money to total strangers, and did volunteer work for the Red Cross. I remember a time when she almost always seemed happy. That was a long time ago, before the fighting, before the separation, before the divorce, and before I started to cause problems. When I pictured her now, and sometimes she was even in my dreams, I saw her with that hurt look in her eyes. Hurt that was put there by something my father had done. Or worse, something I'd done. I wish there was a way for me to tell her that I was okay, to tell her that none of this was her fault. Let's go and get those posters down before anybody else has a chance to see them, Ashley suggested. Sure, we can go and... Not you, Brent said. The last thing we want is for everybody to see you and those flyers together. Somebody might make the connection. Yeah, we'll take care of it, Ashley said. No, leave it to me. I don't think Dana should be alone. So, Ashley, you stay with her. She doesn't need to babysit me, I protested. Yes, she does, Brent argued. I gave him a questioning look. He's right, Ashley said. You're really not that okay, are you? I hesitated and then shook my head. I felt queasy and my legs were shaking. Why don't you two go to Sketches and I'll meet you later, Brent said, okay? I nodded my head, and then the tears I was trying to hide came flowing. Ashley and Brent surrounded me and put their arms around me as I sobbed. Hey, don't cry, kid. This is what family does. And in this family, you're the little sister who'd be lost on her own. You need us to take care of you. And don't you go arguing with me about that. I shook my head. I'm not arguing. Besides, if it gets too hot for you here, if we need to, if worst comes to worst, we'll just leave this all behind and we'll head to another city, Brent went on. Another city? We could get out to the coast, he said. Lots of people do that, Ashley said. Weather is warmer. Winter on the streets here can be pretty rough. My father was living somewhere out in Vancouver. But did I really want to run from my mother and end up getting closer to my father? It's not like he made any big effort to see my sister and me after he left. Probably the last thing he wanted was to see his messed up teenage daughter standing on his doorstep. How would we get there? I asked. We were talking about traveling thousands of miles, not hitchhiking a ride to the mall. Like we do everything else, Brent said. We'll make it up as we go along. Anyway, that's not a problem for today. What is a problem are those flyers, he said, holding one up. Every minute we're talking is another minute where somebody could be reading one of them. You better get moving, Ashley said. I'll see you two later on tonight. How about I catch up with you at the arcade? Around 6? Ashley asked. It might be later. If you can raise a little cash, you get yourself something to eat. We could always dip into the money we raised yesterday, I suggested. Brent shook his head. That's not what that money is for. Just trying to scrounge up enough to get yourselves a meal. How about you? Save me something, if there's enough. If there isn't, don't worry, Brent said. We'll save you something, I said. Whatever we get, 1/3 of it will be there waiting for you. He smiled. Appreciate it. Brent turned around and started off. I watched until he disappeared into the crowd along the street. He really is a good guy, I said to Ashley. That's where you're wrong. He's not a good guy. He's the best guy. She paused. At least, the best guy I've ever been around. He is pretty special. Did you ever think that maybe you and him... I let the sentence trail off. Me and him, what? I suddenly felt very embarrassed. You know, me and Brent together, like girlfriend and boyfriend. I nodded. Thought about it, she admitted. And? And nothing, she said. I'm not his type. Oh, wait a minute. Have you been thinking about you and Brent? No, honestly, I protested. 'Cause you're not his type either, she said. It's not going to happen for either of us. Why not? I know how much you like him and how much he likes you. It's more than that. I love Brent, and I know he loves me. Even better, I said. But it wouldn't work. Why not? I persisted. I told you, I'm not his type. Sure you are. You're smart and funny and really pretty and female, Ashley said, cutting me off. Isn't that the idea? He's male and you're female and... You don't mean... Is he gay? I said, my voice almost a whisper, like I didn't want anybody to hear. I probably shouldn't be saying any of this, Ashley said. But he doesn't look gay, I said. And what exactly does gay look like? I don't know, I mumbled. And he doesn't act gay either, because gay people and straight people are just about the same. Who can tell the difference? Obviously not me, I apologized. That's okay. because you're not the only one who's confused about Brent. Who else? Brent, she said. But how can Brent not know? I asked. Ashley didn't answer right away. Look, I shouldn't have said anything in the first place, so I shouldn't say anything more. I wanted to talk about it, but there was no point in pushing. Pushing Ashley just meant getting pushed back. Ashley looked like she was thinking. If I tell you more, you can't talk to Brent about any of this. Understand? I understand. All right. So, I'll tell you what I think. It doesn't mean I'm right, just, this is what I think. I nodded. She said, I think Brent is gay, but he can't really admit it yet, even to himself. At least not completely. But there's nothing wrong with being gay, I said. Nothing that I can see, but you have to know it's where he's coming from. He doesn't talk about a lot about his family, but I guess, in some way, it's fair for you to know something, because he already knows something about your family. He even met your mother. I felt a shudder go through my whole body. For a split second, I'd forgotten all about her being there, looking for me. Do you know anything about Brent's family? Ashley asked. A bit. He's from a little town, right? A little town up north. Do you know what his father does for a living? No idea. He's a minister, a preacher. I remembered Brett quoting from the Bible. I thought it was strange at the time. Now it made sense. Brent told me his father's church is one of those gospel churches. You know, the type where the minister is always yelling and there's all sorts of talk about hell and damnation and sin. Those churches are real strict. They don't believe in drugs, or even drinking, or dances, or sex before marriage, or divorce, or gays. And Brent is gay, I said. That's what he's trying to figure out, and he couldn't figure it out with everybody watching. He said it was better for his father to have a kid who was on the run than a kid who was a F-word. His father said that to him? I asked. She shook her head, but Brent knew what he would think. Funny, I doubt Brent even remembers telling me any of this stuff. Why wouldn't he remember? He was pretty wasted at the time. Wasted on what? You name it. Brent used to do a lot of drugs back then. But he doesn't do any drugs now, does he? Except for grass, right? I asked. Nothing. He doesn't need to anymore. He needed them before to try to blank out his mind so he wouldn't have to think about things he was doing to survive. What sorts of things? Ashley didn't answer. It's not fair to take the story this far and then just stop, I protested. She nodded her head ever so slightly. You remember how we talked about what the cops said to you? About how all street kids hook? I nodded. Brent hasn't done it for a while, more than a year. When he was first on the streets, he used to hustle. Men would pay him money. But not anymore. He doesn't do anything with anybody. Not boys, not girls. It's all part of him figuring things out. Poor Brent. Poor everybody, Ashley said. But he'll figure it out sooner or later. I didn't know what to say. I dug my hand into a pocket and discovered the supper leftovers I'd been saving. Can we go for a walk? I asked. Depends where, Ashley said. Not far. Just a couple of streets over, in the alley. To feed that cat, right? Yeah. We started off for the alley. First we had to cross the street. I looked anxiously one way and then the other. There was basically no chance of me running into my mother, but I still looked out for her car. I ran across the street, dodging traffic, and didn't stop until I'd reached the safety of the alley. Do you think me feeding the stray cat is strange? I asked. I think it's so you. What is that supposed to mean? I don't know. Did you ever have cat feeding lessons? I gave her a dirty look. Don't look so annoyed, she said. I'm just teasing you a little. You're always teasing me. Well, Ashley said, I tease you because you're like my little sister. Because I love you. You know that, don't you? I nodded. I felt the same way about her. Didn't you ever tease your little sister? She asked. All the time. I wish I had a little sister, or a big sister, or a brother, or anybody, Ashley said. You're an only child, right? Right. Although sometimes my mom made me call her by her first name and told people she was my older sister. Why did she do that? Why did she do half the stuff she did? Ashley asked. I guess she just didn't want people to know she was a mother, especially not the mother of a teenager, she laughed. In some ways she was right. She really wasn't much of a mother. We walked along in silence for a while. And maybe I tease you because I'm a little jealous, Ashley continued. Jealous of me? Jealous of the things you had. Maybe it would have been nice to have had piano lessons or dance or swimming or something. You must have had something like that, I said. She shook her head. I was once in Girl Guides. Well, Girl Guides is kind of fun. I never really got the chance to find out. I only went a few times before I left the foster home and went back to my mother's place. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know what else to say. Feeding that cat is like you because it's a nice thing to do. Who, besides you, goes out of their way to feed stray cats? And that's one of the reasons I love you. It is? She nodded, and I felt all warm inside. It was nice to have somebody love you, somebody be there to help and take care of you. This is where I usually see Pumpkin. Pumpkin? You named it? I shrugged. She answers to it. I cupped my hands around my mouth. Pumpkin! Pumpkin! That seems to be working real well, Ashley said. Pumpkin! I called out louder. Suddenly, the cat came running down the center of the alley. There she is! Pumpkin ran up to my leg and started rubbing and rubbing and rubbing. I reached down and picked her up, cuddling her in my arms. Her little motor was purring away in its strange way. Ashley, this is Pumpkin. Pumpkin, this is Ashley. Pleased to meet you, Pumpkin, Ashley said, and she gave the cat a pat on top of the head. She smells a little funny, Ashley said, crinkling up her nose. I hadn't really noticed. I put her down and reached into my pocket and pulled out the chicken nuggets. I placed them on the cement and Pumpkin started to eat them. Chicken nuggets are her favorite, I said. Is that why you've been ordering nuggets for lunch and supper? Well, I like them too. Did you know why I named her? I asked. Because she's orange and a pumpkin is orange? I can figure a few things out, Ashley said. That's why I named her that. The reason I named her at all is that once you have a name, you're not a stray anymore. Pumpkin's not a stray. She's my cat now. Would it be all right if I saved some food, too, sometimes? Ashley asked. I smiled. I guess there are two people who go out of their way to feed strays. Pumpkin would like that. I'd like that. Ashley bent down and gave Pumpkin a little rub. Pumpkin rubbed back against her leg. I think she likes you, I said. I almost felt a little bit jealous. You know, Dana, it's not just cats who are strays. You ever wonder about me? Why I'm out here? Ashley asked. I wondered. I just didn't think I should ask. You shouldn't. But I'll tell you. I'm out here because of my mother, she said. What did she do to you? I asked. She didn't do anything to me. It's more like she hardly ever did anything for me either. She was always too busy. My father was so busy that there were weeks when we didn't even see him. What does your father do? Ashley asked. He's a businessman, a big shot executive. Some people think that careers are more important than families. I guess your mother just focused on her career? I've never heard of being a stripper referred to as a career before, she said. Your mother is a stripper? I guess I should say exotic dancer. That's what she always called it. I can think of a few other words that fit even better. I didn't know. And you know that cop said street kids and hooking go together? I nodded. Most strippers hook on the side. Not all of them, but most. Did your mother? I asked, then instantly regretted my decision. Sorry, you don't have to tell me, I spluttered. You don't have to. I don't have to, but I will. It's not like she ever told me, but I figured she was. Ashley kept petting the cat, her eyes down, not looking at me. She sold drugs as well, and what she wasn't selling, she was stuffing up her nose. I'm sorry, I just didn't know. How would you? She asked. And with all the other things happening in her life, she just never seemed to have any time or interest in me. The first time I ran away, she didn't even notice for a few days. That's awful. Ashley looked up. There were tears in her eyes. At least your mother cares enough to come looking for you, she said. I wish she'd just leave me alone. You know, if you ever want to tell me your story, why you're out here, you can, she said. What's your mother like? She is nice, I said softly. And she spent time with you, getting you into lessons and stuff. She did, I agreed. Did she ever smack you around? Never, I exclaimed. She never even spanked me or my sister. Then why are you on the run? I swallowed hard. I'd like to tell you, I said. I really would, but But I can't. I turned and walked away.